What's up, everybody? This is Matthew Goins from Puzzle Huddle. Welcome to our behind the scenes series. We have another fantastic interview. This is a part of our series, Puzzle Huddle with Experts. We're really excited to have Miss Malia Campbell. She's one of our favorite Instagram accounts, Miss Campbell Teach. She has exciting content, really cool videos, and we're very fortunate to have her as a guest today. If you could take a moment, Miss Campbell, please introduce yourself.
So my name is Malia Campbell, and I have been a classroom teacher for 5 years, teaching pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. And I've worked in the education space for about 8 years. I attended the University of California in Davis, which is in California, where I studied communication and media relations. After that, I actually worked in the field for a while, but I decided I wanted to do something more fulfilling with my life. So I worked at a nonprofit where I was a literacy instructor. And from then I transitioned into Teach for America, where I was placed in Sacramento to teach kindergarten and then stayed with the same students to teach them first grade. And that experience was really great for me. I found it super fulfilling and I just kind of stuck with it. And that's sort of how I went into getting my master's. I have my master's in urban education with a concentration in literacy. So I absolutely love teaching children how to read. I feel like it's just one of the most important skills that children need to know academically, because it sort of sets them up for success in all of their other subjects when they're strong readers.
This makes so much sense. Not that you're saying that you have a degree in communications, because your Instagram account is like booming. So for you to have the academic background, like you're very talented in terms of communicating with the audience, and the teacher skill set is there. But if you had an undergrad degree in marketing and communications, that kind of just adds a layer of passion and interest and capabilities that would have helped to accelerate the growth of your Instagram account. Let's talk about Instagram. You have a huge account. What are some of your favorite things to share online?
So I actually really love being creative. I think my degree in communications and being a teacher actually goes hand in hand, because I'm able to create and also use what I'm creating to help my children or my students have a more fun learning experience. So I actually started my Instagram when my school had no money for toys, and I would go on Instagram and see teachers, and I was like, well, maybe if I start posting stuff on Instagram, I can get free toys for my students. And it was literally, I just wanted free toys. Specifically this one toy that was like super expensive, so it ended up working. I would post videos and just stuff that we were doing in the classroom. I wasn't going out of my way creating anything. It was just, I would just stick my phone up and capture some video and post it, and then I was getting followers and people were showing interest in what I was doing. And so I was like, So I continued to do it, and now it's become something that brings me a lot of joy, and it's also a way for me to connect with people like you. You were one of my first Instagram friends, and it's great to see Puzzle Huddle doing so well with all of these amazing puzzles. But yeah, social media is just a really great way to share ideas and to also get ideas as well. So I get a lot of ideas from Puzzle Huddle. I actually study your marketing. And then also I like to share things that I feel like will be helpful for teachers and parents, because I feel like my time as a teacher, I've learned a lot of different skills that can be easily picked up and used by anybody.
Yeah, for you to be so effective, the teaching in a kindergarten classroom requires a lot of multitasking, because you have to teach the curriculum, and you have to be entertaining, and you have to maybe deal with distractions that are happening in the classroom and deal with the emotional dispositions, and to also be recording content. How do you juggle all those things real time to capture it and also do it all in the same moment?
Yeah, so I actually don't allow my recording to interrupt anything. So I literally will just put my phone somewhere and then just go about my day, my lesson that I'm teaching. And of course, there are a lot of distractions in a kindergarten classroom, but in order to have a successful classroom, regardless of what grade that is, you have to make sure that you have really great classroom management skills. So I always suggest teachers giving clear, explicit directions to your students, because if you don't, students don't know what they're doing. And the rule of thumb is your students should always know what they're doing at every point of the day. So if you keep that in mind, then your classroom really runs smoothly. And of course, there's no perfect classroom. In fact, it gets pretty crazy in the classroom. But if you kind of just go through a regular routine with your students, they know what they should be doing. And you also have to make sure that your lessons are engaging, because if you are just a boring teacher and you're doing the same repetitive thing every day and you're not adding any excitement, then that's kind of when your classroom management goes downhill, because your students are not engaged and they don't really care what you're talking about.
There's one thing that I remember you posted, because most of your content is it's curriculum, it's education, it's alphabet, it's numbers, it's math. But out of 100 posts, there was one of them that was a TikTok dance video. I just thought, how awesome is that? Because to me, that's the whole syllabus. Like we want to learn the curriculum, the math. But we also want these kids, we don't know who's going to go on to be on Broadway or be a choreographer or a director or go into performance. So on the 100th post, let's get this TikTok in here. And I'm certainly that helps keep the students active and engaged. So how do you balance, what might be the intense learning stuff, the book stuff versus, the fun, silly stuff?
Yeah, so I think in order to connect with your students, you have to know what they like. And a lot of my students, especially in the generation that we're in, they love to dance. And I'm not really a great dancer, so that one specific video you're talking about, I was literally watching the laptop while I was dancing so I could do it with them.
I've seen these kids, whatever that is.
And one of those students, actually, her name is Kendall, and she actually wants to be an actress, and she is a cheerleader right now and a dancer. So I'm hoping that one day we can kind of like help her to have a career of her own, because she's definitely more than capable of doing it. So I like to see what my students are interested in, and if there's any way that I can help at all, I try to do that as much as I can.
Yeah, that's only one component of the curriculum, but I think a well-balanced classroom will include a lot of those things. And then some of your teaching methods, are these original concepts? Are you doing research? Like, where do you pull from for teaching inspiration to bring the best content or the best teaching methods to your students?
So I think with anything, everything is a craft, right? So in your industry, you research puzzles and what children like, and that's the same thing that I do as a teacher. I do a lot of research about literacy teaching strategies or math, and then the ideas that I show on my Instagram or implement in my classroom are ones that I think that my students will enjoy. So sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't, but I just like to experiment, and I think I get a lot of really great feedback from teachers and parents when they're like, wow, that was so easy to implement, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I like to always work on my craft, do research, and kind of just like practice doing different things to keep my students engaged, because having a fun and exciting learning environment is really what the goal is as a teacher.
Yeah, if you're a literacy expert, can you walk me through the ladder for those of us that don't have teaching degrees? So we start our kids, we're going to go over alphabet sounds, but what are the next 3-4 things going up that are the steps to reading after we get, A is I, B is B, then where do we go from there? Okay,
so even before you're teaching them their letters, you're talking about phonological awareness, right? So without addressing letter names, we should be teaching our students about sounds and having them being able to isolate sounds in a word. So if the word is cat, they should know that there's 3 phonemes in cat, like k, at.
There we go.
Right? So you start off with phonological awareness, and then you go up to letter name recognition and having them associate the sound to the letter. And then you go up to digraphs, and then you go up to having them decode words based on digraphs and blends and all the tricky vowel combinations. reading is kind of tricky because there's so many different rules that you have to teach. So I would say it's tricky, but once students learn it, it's so satisfying because they feel like they could read anything, and that's really what we want children to feel like as readers.
What you described it makes it obvious to me that how awesome teachers are. Because if, for example, I have an accounting degree, I know how to read, but I don't know how to break down reading to phonological awareness and then build the capability from there. So how can parents better prepare, support their learners' progress through reading without this educational background that really informs us of kind of the theory behind reading?
Right. So I would suggest that parents talk to the teachers first just to see where their child is and if they need support in specific strategies. And then from there, you actually don't really need to be an expert in reading to help your child at home. So one of the things that you could do is when, reading at home, obviously, yeah, that's great, but you could ask open-ended questions with your child. So reading comprehension is huge that anybody can work on. You don't have to know about phonological awareness and all that. So an open-ended question would be, it wouldn't be like, oh, what color is your sweater? It'd be like, oh, so what do you notice about the sweater? Or referring to a book, how do you think this character felt? So just simple things like that. But then if you want to get more technical, if you really want to support your child in learning the process of how to read, I would say ask your students questions such as, this is the word cat. What is the last sound in cat? They should say t. Okay, what's the sound in the middle? Ah. And so when you break down things like that, phonological awareness becomes easier for them, which actually makes it easier for them to read because the two go hand in hand. And without a strong foundation in phonological awareness, it's really difficult for students to learn how to read because they don't really understand how sounds work.
Yeah, the components are so. As I'm working with my children at home, watching them understand the rules and then the times when the rules are not true, it can certainly be confusing because sometimes word sequences and we're looking at vowel, consonant, vowel, or two vowels together and what that normally means. But then when there's a time that it doesn't mean that, it can be really confusing. But the phonological awareness, I think, is a good concept to embrace. I want to ask you about the teaching during the pandemic. So it's easy to identify what the challenges were, but were there ways that you were able to find success and have great outcomes? Like what did you learn to do through the pandemic and teaching virtually that you think was kind of a good takeaway from the experience?
So during the pandemic, I tried to find ways where my students could have hands-on learning experiences. So I utilized nonprofits that help teachers give their students supplies. So there's an organization called Donors Choose where I would make projects and strangers would donate to the projects, and then I would create these learning kits and have a meetup at the school where parents would come pick up those supplies, and then I would incorporate that into our whole group, small group, and one-on-one lessons. And it just made everything so much more engaging because when you're just teaching on the computer, it kind of is repetitive and boring. So some of the things I included in the kits were magnetic letters, blocks for them, whiteboards, markers, magnet toys, different STEM toys like gears, and they actually really loved it and they still use it to this day. So
you did a magnetile video. You must have had 1,000.
I know. I made that video before I gave it to the kids.
I watched you build these magnetiles up to the roof, and then I think you tipped it over or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was bored.
So magnetiles, I think, are universal. Those work in every household.
Yeah.
I've seen those be very successful. What other tools, in terms of if a parent thinks that they can help, buy tools and resources that really help put some structure to their learning at home, what do you think are some of the best tools and resources that a parent can secure to help? A parent's still going to have to participate in the learning at home, but what tools can help them have good experiences?
So any problem-solving tools such as puzzles are great for kids because it's something that they can use without the help of someone. So we want to make sure that students are independent in the materials that they have. So puzzles, or when they practice their letter recognition, I love the little magnet letters. I had them use a little chart. So it would be a picture of like a dog. And so I'd say, okay, like match your letter D to the dog. So they would like play alphabet match, and they could also do that by themselves as well. That also supports phonological awareness. And I would say just having supplies that they are trained to do, like, let me see, an example would be, there's little math task cards that I made. So basically it's like part whole, which is basically how kids learn in kindergarten how to do math. So what I do is I'll like laminate it and include either bears or blocks with them. And so that way they're able to actually touch supplies while they're learning, because for kindergarten, they really need that kinesthetic angle when they're learning, because it just really helps them a lot. So some kids learn differently. Some kids learn better by hearing, some learn better by touching, and I just like to include all of that in a child's education.
Yeah, your content was very helpful, because during the pandemic, me and a number of parents, we were looking for, well, how do I do this? Like, okay, I want to help my kid learn. Like, I'm interested, I'm engaged, I'm creating the time and the space, but I don't know how to unpackage this math and unpackage the reading and help them kind of walk through the incremental steps to obtain the skill set. And that's why I think your social media accounts really began to thrive and accumulate followers, because we were all searching for similar content at the same time. If we could talk about your social media strategy, which things do you post that turn out to be the most popular?
My teaching videos. So I think what makes them get a lot of attention is when I'm doing things that they could replicate in their classroom, such as little things that people don't even understand when they're not a teacher. So like, you have never been a teacher, right? So you wouldn't think of ways to get your class to be quiet. And that is like one of the biggest concerns that teachers have, like, how do I get my class to be quiet? So if I teach them, or if I show them how to do it, then they're able to implement that in their classroom. So those are the videos that get a lot of engagement, because they're like, oh my goodness, like, how did you just do that? And oh wow, I just did that in my classroom, and my students were so receptive to it. And I think that's pretty much why they like those videos.
My solution at home is to get more serious and more stern. It's like, be quiet. No. Be quiet.
And you know, I haven't always known what to do. My first year of teaching was a really crazy experience. I just had no classroom management skills, and I would raise my voice, which is the absolute worst thing to do as a teacher, because it just gets chaotic, and you should never raise your voice at children, because they're gonna think that's okay to do. And that's not an okay way to communicate with people, especially children who are very impressionable. So whatever behavior you want them to have, you should be displaying that, and I should be displaying it as a teacher, because that's who they see every day.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for parents, but also parents at home, for teachers and parents, that raising your voice isn't necessarily a better method to get the response that you're looking for. You should try something different. Escalation of voice isn't going to necessarily drive the outcome. So you started posting, you said, to get free toys. So did you eventually get those toys that you were?
Oh, I did, yes. And I got so many great resources from companies who really enjoyed my content, and obviously they wanted someone to market their toys. So I was like, of course, like, if you'll give me toys for the kids, I'll definitely share some of the ways that we use it in the classroom.
Yeah, now, we talked briefly about tools and resources. A kindergartner is likely a pre-reading age. What books do you find that you have the most success with, or do your kids enjoy, or do you identify as really good, strong, compelling books that parents can purchase and review with their kids and create learning experiences at home?
So for kindergarten age students, typically in the system that we use here in America, we have leveled reading. So they have A, B, C, D, and I mean, it's some people like that system, some don't, because some people think that it's embarrassing for a child. However, I think it's helpful because it allows you to progress monitor where they are, and it allows people to teach at the capacity that the child is able to process. So you don't want to have a child reading a text that is too advanced for them, because they'll feel defeated and they actually will not want to read and their confidence will go low. So if you start off at the perfect zone of proximal development, then they're able to, it's just the right amount of challenging for them. So I would say that if a parent is wanting to know what type of text they should be reading with their child, just try a few different books for them. And also, if your child doesn't know how to read yet, then one of the best things you could do is, like, well, you hear all the time, like, you read with them, because when they hear you reading and they see you reading, then they're going to want to read as well. And the more words that a child hears actually supports them academically as well.
Yeah, I'm really committed to reading with my kids, and even though I'm not convinced that it's a literal teaching them to read, because but I think that there's something in the foundation in me using the words and the language in front of them, that there's value and goodness that's going to come out of it. Like there's no way that this is going to subtract from the reading capabilities.
Right.
Like it has to be additive. So if I just keep reading these books, then there'll be a parallel, qualified, capable teacher that will give them the phonemic awareness and the kind of the theory that builds into the reading, and hopefully the two together will create a wonderful outcome. But what about math? What are some things that parents can think about at home to help inspire and give their children the foundational math concepts that really enable classroom execution?
So for math, I love math because you could actually use anything for math. So you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of supplies. You can if you want, but you could do simple things like, if you have a pre-K or a kindergarten child, you can have them count their snacks. You could have them make groups of 5 or 10. You could have them count on the way if they're in the car, have them count by 1s, by 5s, by 10s on the way to school. Incorporate that into your normal routine. And I think the way that math is taught now is definitely not the way that I learned or you learned. So I feel like it's really important for a really great communication between the teacher and the parent, or the family, so that everyone understands what exactly the child is working on in math, and that way they can support them. Because, I mean, yeah, the basic counting skills is necessary, but they also need to learn those technical strategies that the schools are teaching students.
Yeah, we're going to count our snacks at home. You get 2 pieces of broccoli. And we're going to start with our vegetables. You mentioned earlier that you have a good class quieting skills. Can you just share with our audience what one of those songs or things or methods that you use to help get your kids to sit and quiet down and pay attention?
So let's see. Some of the basic they're called attention getters or attention grabbers, is when you have the kids repeat after you when you're clapping. So it'll just be like, so I go first, the teacher goes first, and then the students go first. So I'll go like, and then the rest of the class does it. Okay, and so like when they hear you clapping and they clap, they know that their voices should be off. And like little silly chants like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and then everyone says 1, 2, eyes on you. Just like, those are like universal teaching strategies that a lot of teachers use that.
Yeah, one I hear a lot is this crisscross applesauce, which is, who thought of that? I don't know, but I hear a lot of crisscross applesauce, and that's a method to get kids to sit down and, I guess.
Yeah, but whatever works for the class and the students, that's what the teacher should be doing.
You've already given us so many fantastic tips, but if you could boil it down to maybe 2 or 3 key things, what are some of the things that a parent should do to really help ensure their learners are having good learning experiences at home and they're prepared for additional learning in school?
So I love that question because something that often gets overlooked, even before focusing on academics, is focusing on health. So think about, what are you feeding your child at home? Are you feeding them processed foods? Are they just eating a bunch of chemicals? And even for myself, I know when I don't eat healthy foods, I feel bad. And if you think about it, high fructose corn syrup, dye, all that stuff is not natural, and we really shouldn't be eating it. So I feel like children should really be, or families should really be focused on what their child is eating. And if you're feeding them a bunch of like sugar before school,
a Snickers bar for breakfast is not going to be.
They're not going to be able to focus, because what you eat. So if you're eating a bunch of chemicals and processed food, then your body just will not take that in properly, and you'll have a lot of issues, like students will not be able to focus. They'll be active in class when they're supposed to be focusing. So I would focus on health, definitely, that's like key. And then moving forward and thinking about academics, incorporate little things throughout the day to form a habit. So I like to say, create an environment that is conducive to learning. For example, if a child wakes up and there's a tablet on their nightstand, what do you think the first thing they're gonna do is when they wake up?
Minecraft.
Yeah, they're gonna go on their iPad. But if they wake up and they just see books, or they see puzzles, like problem solving games or whatever, they're gonna use that, right? So create an environment where children have access to educational resources and things that will ultimately support them academically.
Yeah, wow, that's so insightful. What do you do when you're bored? So do you go get a coloring book and color, or are you searching the room for your tablet? So hopefully parents can build structure environments and habits where their first instincts are to do something that's a little more developmental in terms of their learning, and not default to a game, an electronic game, which isn't going to have as much curriculum loaded.
Yeah, so basically having options for your child to be creative and, just like I said, creating habits. So after Malia takes a bath, then she goes and reads a story, or she goes and counts on her hundreds chart. So these should be little things that you can incorporate every single day. So that way you're not really thinking about it. It's just automatically built into your schedule.
This is wonderful. I learned so much. Thank you for unpackaging all those things and describing them in a way that I think I could digest, and hopefully some of the parents that are watching, they could digest those as well.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Ms. Campbell, thank you so much for sharing all those wonderful insights with us, for coming to our warehouse facility, our warehouse/studio, and spending some time with us. We want to invite everyone that's watching to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you check out Ms. Campbell Teach on Instagram. She has wonderful videos and learning content, and it's certainly worth checking out. We appreciate you spending some time. Like and subscribe to our channel, and thank you.